All right, now I will share. Welcome, everybody. My name's Deneen Lancaster. I am the manager of faculty affairs. Hopefully you're, do you see my screen sharing the promote workshop?
Yes.
Okay, yay. Okay, so I'm so glad you're all here on this, at least where I live, a rainy day. Promote workshop is not only for promotions, but it's also for anybody going for a new appointment. Even we mostly talk about what we call at Cleveland Clinic regular track. At Case they call it full-time. So we're mostly going to talk about that, but we'll answer all your questions and give you some great information. Cleveland Clinic Learner College of Medicine of Case Western Reserve University. We are absolutely a part of Case. We couldn't be here without them. And so let me go to the next slide. There we go. I'm not sure if Nicole is going to be able to join us, but usually Nicole Deming is here. She is assistant professor at Case. She's the assistant dean of faculty affairs and human resources. So when I don't know what's going on, I contact her usually, or somebody else in that department. She's wonderful. We are going to have Aliza Galinsky speak today too. She's going to talk about more information about promotions. And then I myself, Deneen Lancaster, I'm the manager of faculty affairs at Cleveland Clinic. And I have two co-workers with me, Bev Payne and Tina Patarandi O'Neill. And then we also have an intern. And we're recording this workshop, as I said earlier. All right, so the topics that I'm going to go over are why you should take the time to promote yourself, the different tracks and ranks, the difference between a new appointment and a promotion, moving between two tracks, the regular or the clinical adjunct track, and who can transfer. All right, so why pursue a faculty appointment at Cleveland Clinic Learner College of Medicine of Case Western Reserve University? You should promote yourself and get credit for all you do. Most people that are applying for a new appointment or promotion are already have done the hard work of gaining a reputation and getting their new ideas out there to benefit the medical and scientific community. So you might as well get credit for it by getting a faculty appointment. I think it's nice that your staff title match your faculty rank. So a lot of people have been at the Cleveland Clinic a long time. They're full staff, but they may not have a faculty appointment yet. And I think it's good that, that those two match as well as they can. You'll be in a better position to apply for grants and some awards. A lot of times they don't want to give multi-million-dollar grants to someone who is, say, a clinical assistant professor. They want to see a higher faculty appointment. And so it may open you up to get more grants. You should get involved with academic medicine, teaching, lecturing, presenting, writing papers. That's academic medicine. And, if you want to pursue that, then you might as well get a faculty appointment to show all the hard work you've done. And then for a lot of people, they are interested in faculty policy and governance. And if you have any interest in that, then you would need a faculty appointment so you could serve on committees at Case Western or vote on different issues that are going on there. Like our own Dr. Cabu, Cynthia Cabu, she was on our CAP committee at CCLCM, and she was on the CAPT committee at Case. And now she's the vice chair of faculty over at Case. So she's actually really pursued the academic medicine and policy over at Case, and that's wonderful. So what are the benefits to you for getting a faculty appointment other than the glory of having a faculty rank? At Case, you can get an ID card. You get a Case email address and network access. If you're in the Cleveland area, you can use the gym. You get discounts at their bookstore. You can have electronic access to Case libraries. That is for dependent on your work location. If you're not in the Cleveland area, then that unfortunately would not apply to you. And then you can also network with your fellow faculty members to do research projects with them, committee work. The possibilities are endless. All right, so CCLCM, when we partnered with Case, they allowed us to partner with their medical school. It was decided that all our appointments would be non-tenure. We have 2 tracks. The regular track is what we call it. At Case, it's called full-time. It means that you're spending a significant amount of time involved in academic medicine and teaching. If you apply in our clinical track, you're considered part-time, and that means you're limited in your academic activities and teaching. You're just maybe more pursuing clinical work with patients than you are more doing the academic activities. All right, so in the regular track, we have instructor. Only certain people at in Learner Research Institute apply for instructor. Then we have assistant professor, associate professor, and professor. When you're in the regular track, you're allowed full access at Case to vote and serve on committees and help make policy if you're interested. That's all open to you in the regular track. The other track we have is clinical, the clinical and adjunct. They're the same titles you saw in the regular track. So these same instructor, assistant professor, associate, and professor, except they have a prefix in front of them. So Case calls them special appointments. So it's clinical instructor, clinical assistant professor, and so on. Those can vote on a few SOM issues, but the majority of the issues you cannot vote on. You cannot serve as a faculty council member. Certain committees, like say they were forming a committee to find a new provost, you could not be asked to serve on that committee if you were in the clinical track. So it does limit you a little in that respect. All right, so to go on to senior promotion application materials. When you apply for a promotion, you will have to turn in these documents. What I always tell people, it's best to just start the application. Things make a lot more sense when you're in the application and you can see exactly what's needed, but you'll need your CV and R template. You'll need a nomination letter, a personal statement, a teaching portfolio that it could be optional or mandatory, teaching evaluations and an evaluation summary from your chair. You'll have to submit referee names for colleague, trainee, and external, and fill out a declaration of candidacy form. All this is explained in our requirements and also in the application. All right. So if you're not applying for a promotion and you're just applying for a new appointment, there are a few less items that you need. So if you're currently don't have any appointment, or you have an appointment in the clinical track and are looking to move to the regular track, that would be a new appointment. You would not be required to fill out the promotion form. You don't need teaching evaluations unless you would like to. So there's a few less items that you need if it's a new appointment. For clinical adjunct track, there's a lot less that's needed. So a lot of times people will say to me, why would I apply for a professor when clinical professor is so much easier? There's not as much to do and it gets done quicker. Well, the reason is it's not as prestigious. The regular track is much more prestigious. when you go out there nationally to society meetings and that type of thing, people know what professor means. They know that it took a lot to get that. It's not that clinical professor isn't good, but it's just definitely easier to get, and it's not as prestigious. So we always recommend that if you're qualified, you apply in the regular track. All right, so there are no deadlines. There used to be a deadline for senior promotions. There are no longer. So every track we have, every rank at CCLCM, there are no deadlines. You apply when you're ready. So the timeline for senior promotions, you would turn in your application, like I said, whenever you're ready. When you feel like you're qualified, you've probably talked to your chair already, maybe at an APR meeting, and it's been decided that it looks like you have the required reputation and you're ready. So you will go ahead and fill out an application. Once we process your application, we'll start soliciting to get the referee letters for your application. And then it'll go to our CAP committee to be voted on. And our CAP committee is a committee on appointments and promotions. Once that happens, we have to do more paperwork in our office. And then we send the application over to Eliza, Nicole, and everybody over at CASE. They do their paperwork and they get it ready for their CAP committee. So their CAP committee adds the word tenure. That's why there's a T at the end, because there are other locations that do have tenure, like CASE and some people at UH. Then the dean, the provost, and the president must look at your application. And then when it's finally got approval from all those different people and groups, then it goes to the board of trustees at CASE. And they vote on promotions in December or June of each year. And because of that, your rank would become effective in either January or July. So it does, it could be like a year and a half before you finally get the final approval that's needed on your promotion application. And there's more information than this. Like our website has so much more information. The requirements checklist that'll be in the application or on our website has a lot more information. I just wanted to touch upon transfers. Transfers can only be made through another CASE affiliated location here in Cleveland. So it's Metro Health, University Hospitals, and the Veterans Hospital. Those are the only ones that can transfer. Unfortunately, we can't transfer from anywhere else. You can't transfer from Mayo or somewhere else. You have to be qualified here and apply here. All right. Any questions on this part so far before we let Eliza give her presentation? Let me look. I don't see anything in the chat. Eliza, I realized I was on the wrong screen waiting for your email. I was in one of the folders.
Did you get it?
I did get it.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Anybody with questions then?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you give again the timeline?
So the timeline, so let's just, it's hard to pin it down because what happens is once it gets to CASE, it needs about 6 months. So say you turned in your application today, time we look at it and review it, it could be a month because we get that many applications. We can't even, work on them like the next day because there's just a volume. So we'll look at it and then we'll let you know if anything needs to be updated. Like your personal statement for a promotion, you're allowed 3 pages. Some people don't read that in the instructions and turn in 4 pages. So then we have to email you and say, you need to change your personal statement to 3 pages. So we go over everything and we email you. And time you get back to us and we fix everything, then we start emailing your referees. and we email the referees 4 times. So if we email them at the 1st of October, we email them at the 1st of November, December, and January. And hopefully in that time period, we get all your letters from the external, the colleague, and the trainee. Once that happens, then we get your application ready to go to one of our reviewers on CAP, 2 reviewers, and we get you set up for a CAP meeting. If we're full, we have to put you to the next month. So all this takes a lot of time. Once that's done, we send it over to CASE, and they need about 6 months to do, you know, roughly the same. They have to go to their CAP committee, then they have to send it to all these other offices. If it gets done by a certain date, then it can go to the Board of Trustees, like say for the December vote or the June vote. So the quickest it could probably ever be done is 9 months, and that would be a miracle. It usually takes more like a year and a half.
You know, for people who are already in academic medicine, it seems like then there's a waste of time and you have a year gap on your academic record if you're coming from another institution.
So what we can do is get you a temporary appointment. So say you're coming here from another institution and you think you're qualified for associate professor, we can get you a temporary clinical associate professor. So you'll get that quickly. That's within a week while you're getting your application together. So you'll at least have some type of faculty appointment while you wait.
Benny, can I just make one comment with regards to the clinic? So the way it works is that when it comes down to appointments, it's rolling, like even at UH or anywhere like on our end, it's rolling applications. The timeline that's strict is the promotion. So like I might get an application come in today, and then if I get all my letters and all the letters and the whole packet looks complete, sometimes we can get it done. I don't know about in CCLCM, but we could have a package in 3 months. But then it's once it gets passed on over to the CAPT, we don't know what that timeline is. So once it goes, and if it passes the CPT, if it doesn't pass the CPT, it goes back, because then your chair has to decide whether or not to do an appeal. So promotions are definitely longer, but I feel like appointments have a shorter timeline because they're rolling. Like it can go, if we have a lot of time open, all of a sudden, all the appointments can just be put in, and then we pass it on as quickly as we can. Does that help?
Yeah, I think just to clarify, when you say appointments, you mean new appointments? Because I don't have an appointment because I haven't had an academic appointment at this.
Yeah, a new appointment as opposed to a promotion.
Yeah,
it comes down to new appointments. And as Diane said, clinical is much faster, but less prestigious. So
yeah, and unfortunately, I didn't understand the fact that you can do a clinical appointment so quickly. So is there on the website, is there a process that we can look?
Well, yes and no. I'm not sure if we have temporary on there yet, but we can do that. So once we can get IT going, we have a lot of updates we want. So eventually it's going to be when you open your application, it'll pop up that we can get you a temporary. But we're not that far yet. But I'm going to write down your name, and I'm going to send you the temporary instructions.
Great. Yeah, it just seems, I mean, I've never been in a non-academic institution, so it's always been, you just assume, you know, instructor or clinical, assistant professor. When you enter that new institution, there's not a lot of paperwork that has to be done. It's sort of done for you, but this seems much more labor intensive on the clinician side.
It is, but
yeah.
the only thing we need, so the instructions for temporary are going to tell you to start your application. So if you know that you're qualified by reputation for a certain rank, you go in, open it, fill out the first 2 tabs of the application, which takes about 5 minutes, and then sign this letter and email it to us, and we can get you a temporary within a week.
Fantastic. This was really helpful, and I don't want to waste everybody else's time. So
I'm glad you brought it up. Temporaries are really a godsend because because of how long things take. And Eliza's correct. We say like 14 months or 16 for a promotion, but I've seen new appointments be around a year because they do go quicker. And the Board of Trustees only votes on promotions in December and June, but the Board of Trustees votes on new appointments every month. So it definitely can go quicker with a new appointment.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a good question. All right. I'm going to somehow, there we go. Let me just pull up your PowerPoint. All right, everybody see that? You could just say, absolutely, just say next and I'll hit the next.
Okay, so as Deneen said earlier, my name is Eliza Galinsky. I am one of the 3 faculty affair coordinators. This presentation is actually adapted from Nicole Deming, who is our Assistant Dean of Faculty Affairs. Can you go to the next slide, please? So here are the important contacts. You will be getting this slideshow after our meeting. So there's a couple very important contacts at the case office. So as I first mentioned, first is Nicole, who is our Assistant Dean. Then we have Megan Wheeler, who is our Faculty Affairs Coordinator for CCLCM. Then there's Mary Elizabeth Spahn, who works in basic science at the School of Medicine. And then there's me, and I do the VA, UH, and Metro. And we have Joyce, who's our department administrator. And she basically, if you have a question, and she'll know which direction to send you in. She basically knows almost everything that goes on in this office. So she's a great resource. Next slide, please.
I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second and say that at CCLCM, we really would appreciate if you ask any questions through our office first, because if we don't already know the answer, we'd love to find out the answer so we know the next time, and then we would get back to you.
Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to talk about promotions this evening. So Diane, can you go to the next slide, please? So there are 5 academic ranks, although I think in CCLCM there's 4. Is that correct? Do you have, so within the rest of school, like with UH or the VA, there's instructor, senior instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and professor. We're going to focus on the promotion to associate professor and professor this evening. Next slide.
Yes, we tend not to use senior instructor at CCLCM.
Okay. Okay. So basically this slide says, why were you guys hired? We looked at that you had expert knowledge in the academic field and a commitment to continuing development in the competence, a dedication to effective teaching, a commitment to continuing the program of research or other advanced creativities, such as production of art or artistic promotion, or where more appropriate to the particular academic context, professional service and activities, and a willingness to assume a fair share of university administrative and service tasks, as Deneen spoke about it earlier. There's committees you can join. Nicole might have more information about that. I don't know. I didn't know that CCLCM was a little bit different than the others, but than the other locations. But please contact Deneen to see which committees you can join. Next slide. So we're looking at academic excellence. So all candidates for promotion should be focused in 3 areas, which is research, teaching, and professional service. Professional service includes both administrative and clinical service. Next slide. This is the promotion timeline, but this is more for the general, but for CCLCM, it's a little bit different because you're rolling. But however, if packages are ready for the provost by September 1st, 2024, it means that the promotion date will be January 1st, 2025. For anything January 15th, 2025, the promotion date will be July 1st, 2025. Next slide. So CCLCM focuses only on non-tenure track. So if your major strength is either teaching or clinical service, the candidate must present evidence of recognition at a regional level for an associate professor and national recognition for a professor. Next slide. So in teaching, it's a little bit different. So what we do ask is that you submit a, and Deneen, always jump in, please, if I'm incorrect, that we ask for a 25-page portfolio, and I'll explain more what that is in the next page, but that really, really focuses on what you've done as a teacher. And if you go to the next slide, it'll show more.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. So when you're picking these primary areas of excellence, it's either professional service, like she said, teaching, or research. 90% of the people at CCLCM are going to pick professional service. There's probably 2 or 3% that teach enough that their reputation is in teaching. Not just that they teach, but they actually have a reputation as being a teacher. And then the other like 7% work as researchers 100% of the time, and they apply in research. Research is really not for somebody who just does research while they're seeing patients. It's really for people that are in LRI or they're hired to do research 80 to 100% of the day. I just wanted to get that out there. But yes, teaching portfolios are great. Even if teaching is your secondary area of excellence, we still suggest a portfolio a lot of times.
A quick question on that, Deneen. You had said earlier in the checklist that you have to have a teaching portfolio.
It said mandatory or optional. If your primary area of excellence is going to be teaching, it's going to be mandatory. If your secondary area of excellence is teaching, we would encourage you to do one, but it's not required.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so in regards to, and then also, Deneen, please look at the chat. There's questions coming through, but we can address them once the presentation's over. So in terms of teaching portfolio, what we would like you to have is your philosophy of teaching and your personal development, a teaching inventory, important teaching contributions, and evaluations and awards. Next slide. So when we're looking at clinical excellence, we're asking for information about how you participated in professional societies, especially in leadership positions, if you've been invited to present at academic medical centers or on clinical expertise, or has developed a new practice and new practice methods and recognition. Next slide. For, again, for the non-tenure track, so basically what we're asking you to do is there are 3 areas, as we mentioned. So we ask you to pick one primary area of excellence, but also a secondary. So let's say your teacher is your primary. You can either pick research or clinical in your, when you submit your declaration, you'll be asked to click on or to choose which is your secondary out of those. Next slide, please. Okay, so research, as Deneen said, it's very unique. CCLCM doesn't have as many, whereas other schools do. So research can be done either in a team setting or an individual, but if you're going to do it in a team setting, you must be original in what you do, and you have to prove your contributions that that what you do is important in terms of your contributions. Next slide. So for research, as opposed to clinical service and teaching, to go up to associate professor, you must have a national level of recognition. For professor, you have to have a sustained excellence and enhanced recognition. Next slide. Your CV is really important. So you submit your CV to Deneen, and then when you go from there. However, we've had situations where if you do a presentation, please constantly update your CV. You never know what will be a piece. Let's say someone's reviewing it at the CBT and someone's in physiology, or you're in general medicine. Well, someone in physiology might recognize it better than someone in medicine. They'd be like, wow, this is really important. So anything that you do, please constantly update your CV. You never know what will be the wow factor in your CV that'll really stick out in the CEPT. Next slide. So please find mentors, network among your the colleagues who are in the same situation as you. Next slide. So what's going to happen is that you're probably going to have an annual review. When you have your annual review, please go in with an agenda. See what you can do to be promoted, ask what your goals are, see what else can be done. And this will be done by your either by your division chief or by your chair, depending where you are. And it's really important you get a lot. If you go in with a lot of information, you'll get a lot out of it. So just do the best you can to get as much as you can out of this meeting. Next slide. So get to know colleagues at other institutions and professional organizations, present papers, review journals, present visiting lectures, accept visiting appointments. Any professional activity that goes beyond cases, will be worth it. Now, the advantage to this is that when we're requesting letters from external referees, they'll know who you are. Oh, that doctor did such an amazing presentation on a certain topic, and they might not know you personally, but they'll have heard of you, and that makes it a lot easier to obtain letters. Next slide. So as we mentioned, please document your CV. Unfortunately, one of the weakest elements of document your teaching. One of the weakest elements of your CV, of the CVs have been teaching records. Document teaching responsibilities as they happen. That'll keep your CV up to date, as I said, and you will be there will be a teaching evaluations and a summary of these evaluations included in your package. Next slide. So service is one of the referees that we ask for. So it's a very general it's very general in terms of who we ask. So for example, it could be someone who does good citizenship, service on committees, administrative contributions, professional memberships, activities. What we do say is that junior faculty should be careful as to how much they take on. Another example of service is, for example, if you volunteer for the Red Cross. I've seen that before. You can have the director be chosen as one of your referees and they could write a letter for you. So service is really a large category, and just think what you do beyond your medical activity, your teaching activity, or what. Think out of the box, basically. Next slide.
For CCLCM, that would be under your colleague names.
Okay.
Because ours are, we don't separate the colleagues.
So scholarship is the key to promotion. There is no single definition of scholarship. The key concepts include evidence-based research, teaching, peer review, hypothesis-driven research, whether concerning biomedical science or education. So next slide. So if you participate in a publication, which we really hope you do, please be sure to mention that you are associated with Case Western University. And next slide. Make yourself indispensable. Try to find a niche or the role that no one else can play in your department. Next slide. You are responsible for your promotion, for your research, for your service, not your chair, not your division. So please take control of your future, know what path to go in, and again, find mentors. Do as much as you can to get yourself promoted. Next slide. So this is looking towards the future. So we do have the option of an emeritus appointment. As you advance in your career, you might want to consider applying for it. So these are the factors included: is the consent of the faculty member, contributions to the school and the university. So you need at least a service of at least 10 years as a full-time faculty member, minimum retirement age of 60, but in exceptional cases, there are faculty members who might retire early because of disability, and they may be considered for the emeritus appointment at an earlier age, provided that the conditions have been made. Retirement from full-time active service at Case is another requirement, and we included the link in the slideshow it's in light blue, but it's there.
It can be part-time as well.
I think, yeah.
Yes, clinical assistant professor or higher.
Right.
But never adjunct.
Never, or instructor.
Correct.
And yes. I think that's it.
Okay.
So thank you very much. And I know that there's questions in the chat.
Yes. Let me just stop sharing here. All right. let's look at this chat. Okay. Dr. Williamson, can you skip a level within either track or jump between tracks, go from clinical to regular? Yes, you can. So if you're currently, say, a clinical assistant professor and you want to go to the regular track, you pick what rank you're qualified for, and that would be a new appointment. So, you know, you don't have to come in at assistant professor and move up the whole way. If you're a clinical assistant professor right now and you're qualified for associate professor, you could apply for a new appointment at that rank. It would be a new appointment. Somebody else asked, how does one choose teaching versus professional service?
You answered that actually after I asked. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, that's okay. I mean, I get some people sometimes who want to pick research, and what I like to tell people is after you receive your appointment or promotion, no one's going to ask what your primary area of excellence was. So it's best to pick your primary area based on what you're known for. So if you are always, you know, known for your lecturing on all these papers you've written and you get grants and you do all this, then that would be research. But again, that's usually only people who are in LRI, learner research, who are doing research all the time. Teaching, you don't have to write every paper on teaching, but you really should have some papers on teaching, or people ask you to lecture because of your novel teaching approach. So you come up with some new way to teach whoever it is, residents, staff, whatever. You write a paper on it because it was so groundbreaking that they're learning so much better. Then people see the paper and they ask you to come lecture and do visiting professorships or grand rounds. And so you're known for your teaching. Then you would pick teaching. Hardly anybody's like that. The majority, like I said, do professional service, within parentheses is clinical and professional. So that means that you're known for your clinical or administrative work. So you can be writing papers on diabetes in children and you can lecture on that, but you know, and you can serve on all these committees, and that's what you're known for. People are, you know, they want you to be on the American Diabetes Society committee, or they ask you to write questions for the fellows test when they try to take their boards, because you are such an expert in this topic that they're all want to hear from you. That would be like professional service. And how do I see that on a CV? I see that by like manuscript reviewer, maybe you're on an editorial board, an advisory board, maybe you're on the, you know, American Red Cross board, or like on a committee for them. You know, you're giving lectures places. People have asked you to come present at society meetings. You have a reputation. Like Lisa was saying, we go for a regional reputation on associate professor, as long as it's not research. And what regional means is if you're here in Cleveland, it means like the Midwest. Now, sometimes Nicole likes to always say, sometimes it's hard to get a regional reputation. Maybe there's not a society for diabetes in children in the Midwest. So maybe you end up getting a national reputation instead, an emerging national. You would still apply for associate professor because you're newer and your reputation is you know, is growing, but is not national yet, maybe. You would apply for associate professor, but that's how you get it, by doing things. So I will get a lot of people who say, I've done so much work. I used to work in Boston and I started these programs, and then I came to the Cleveland Clinic and I started the programs here. And they talk a lot about what they've done, but it's all been local. So if you used to work at Boston University, say, and they call you back there to do a grand rounds, that's not a national talk. That's a local, because you went to school there. Or if you're where you used to work calls you back, to do a lecture. That's local. So you have to realize that Case wants to promote people that have gotten their message out to the world, the medical community. So just saying you've done everything within the Cleveland Clinic is unfortunately not going to give you a regional or national reputation. All right. That was a long answer, but I got on a roll. I tend to do that. The next question, do we need to provide primary and secondary? Yes. Anytime you apply in the rank of associate professor or professor, whether it's a new appointment or a promotion, you must provide a primary and a secondary area of excellence. All the lower ranks, you only need a primary. So your secondary, you're going to look at your CV and what you've done, and you're going to say, wow, I haven't written that many papers. I don't have any grants. I think it looks like teaching's my secondary because I've taught a lot. I've made some curriculum. I've done these things. It looks like teaching. Your secondary area of excellence does not need to be a regional or national reputation. It needs to be acceptable contributions. That's out of the bylaws right there. Acceptable contributions. So you're going to want to talk about that in your personal statement, what you've done in your secondary. And just because the final area isn't as where you're as strong, you're still going to want to talk about it though in your personal statement. You know, there's some people where it's really hard to pick because they're just like a all-star in all three categories. You still have to pick a primary and secondary, but please feel free to talk about that final area of excellence as well. All right, what else? Is teaching specific to the art of teaching, or can it be development of educational programs and shaping education? Yes, it could be that. You know, yeah, it definitely could be that. I mean, we had somebody once, it was a residency or fellowship program. There were actually people like trying to get in the program. It was so good. And so that was a main part of it, that people wanted to have him talk about how he created this program, how it's very popular, and how people are recommending students come here, and other institutions want to know what he did to make it so good. That gave him that that primary area of excellence of teaching. So yes, you don't want to pick teaching if all you've done is teach at the clinic. We want you to do that. Believe me, we want you to teach the medical students, but that wouldn't give you a reputation unless you're out there talking about what you're doing. All right, I don't see any other questions. So what else would you guys like to talk about? Any other questions or like I said, please, I could show you the website if you want to show you where a lot of things are at. But I would say we have something called a requirements checklist, and it's really long. So you're going to look at it and you're going to go, oh my goodness, I do not want to apply for professor. Look how long this is. But it's really just explaining everything. So if I get enough people asking me the same question, I put the answer in the primary check in the requirements checklist, because enough people have asked me that I just put it in there. So I would say one of the two hardest things about applying are, one, you have to put your CV in our template. And when we say in our template, we mean exactly in our template. It says name on this side and you type your name across from it. We mean that. Don't remove the thing that says name and just put your name over here. We mean the whole thing. We mean committee name, and then you put Cleveland Clinic Competency Committee. So it has to be exactly. And what that does is help the referees and the reviewers go through our CVs much easier, because they know exactly where to look to find things. You know, imagine being a volunteer reviewer on one of these CAP committees, and you have a different type of CV every time, it would be very confusing. The second hardest thing is getting your external referees right. So it's easy to pick 8 trainees, right? They can be former trainees, current trainees, they could be postdocs, master's students, residents, it doesn't matter, anybody you've trained. That's not hard. Colleague, we require 5 colleague names. It could be people, like Eliza said, that you served on a committee with. It can be people you used to work with. It can be anything. Those are easy. We require 14 external names, and that's the hard part, because what people tend to do is want to pick people they know. And it's okay to pick people you kind of know. Like I run into you at a meeting once a year. That's fine. But we've had people pick external referees where the external referee starts off the first paragraph with, I can't wait to go to his wedding next month. Now, that's not arm's length if they're being invited to your wedding. So all you do in the people who pick not good referees, I picture what they're doing is trying to get through their application as quickly as possible. Like, this is taking too long. I'm just going to pick some names. And I think they also think if I don't know them, they won't write. Like, who would write a letter for someone they don't know? People will. The best letters we get are people that say for associate professor, I never heard of this person. But now that I looked at their CV and looked up some of their papers, I'm like, wow, they're doing great work. Like, I'm going to start like looking into them because they're doing such great work. And yes, from what I just read on their personal statement and their CV, they definitely are qualified for associate professor. Or say on professor, they may say, yeah, I've seen them at, at society meetings. I've seen them lecture. I've actually quoted their research before because it's so groundbreaking. They don't need to know you personally to know who you are, like Eliza was saying. But when in doubt, leave them out. If you need to email me and say, Deneen, this person kind of used to be my mentor, and I also lived in their house for a year, and all these things, do you think I can pick them? The answer is no. Don't do it. Don't do it, because if we get the letter that they spent 2 hours writing, and it says they know you really well, we have to move that to a colleague letter. And now we have to, we might end up asking you for more names for external, because all these letters we're getting, if I end up with like 9 or 10 colleague letters, I know automatically these people the candidate put in bad external names.
And Deneen, I'm just going to add something to that. When we were asking about the timeline, this is what tends to extend the timeline. So I've had situations, for example, where I've asked for 18 names. And unfortunately, because for one reason or another, let's say 3 were non-external, I had to go back and ask for 6 more. So Deneen's 100% right. Please be careful with who you choose, because that could really extend the timeline for an appointment. And it unfortunately has happened that people have missed their promotion deadline because they didn't pick the right people.
Yeah, they could go to the next deadline, but it really does extend, the final approval. Yeah, I've had people, I think the highest was, I had someone give me a total of 35 names before I could get the letters. And so it really can delay it. But we're doing the best we can. If we ask you for more names, it's to make your application successful. If we tell you to fix something, it's to make your application successful. And we have a great record of getting our applications passed. I would say like 99% of them pass once they get to case. So they're good odds, but it's because we make sure everything we send is good. And we also hope people won't apply unless they're really ready. Okay, we did have a question. Do you have one-on-one appointments to review application, personal statement, CV, etc.? Let me say this. We can do one-on-ones. We prefer not to, because we're so overwhelmed with applications and work we have to do, because we don't just do applications in my department. We also get academic chairs to serve at case. We get faculty council representatives. We have to do policy. We have to do our accrediting body paperwork, but we can if needed. We have no problem. I mean, I actually like doing it, but what we ask you to do is first read the requirements checklist like over, because a lot of times when people ask me questions, I know exactly where it is on the requirements checklist, and I know they didn't read it. So I would say read it a few times. Also, open your application. Things make a lot more sense when you open it. We will review everything once you hit submit. I told you we don't exactly read the personal statement the whole way, but I scan it. If I see a bunch of acronyms, my first thing is going to be, you don't know who's going to review your application. You're in dermatology, a geneticist might look it over. A geneticist is not going to know the acronyms for dermatology. So, you know, spell it out, make it clear for a smart person to read it and understand, not somebody in your specialty. The CV, again, the ones we have to send back are always because they did not exactly follow the template. They figured they could follow half of it and that would be good enough, but we really need you to follow it. And there is time to rework things even after you hit submit. So if somebody says, hey, can you look this over before I hit submit? I usually tell them, just hit submit, because we're going to review it then. What I tend to do on one-on-one appointments is for people who aren't sure what to apply for, or people who aren't sure if they have the reputation and they need to talk about something. But yes, we can do that if we're needed to. And then I would say address all your questions to our main email box, which is Faculty Affairs, CCLCM at ccf.org. Don't email me personally, because if I'm out or something or busy, you might not get an answer right away. But there's 3 of us that look at the mailbox. And so you're much more apt to get a quick answer if you email the Faculty Affairs mailbox. What else? In our institute department, we have a committee that reviews everything before submittal. Are you in PEDS? Whoever asked that, I don't want to, do you mind talking during a recorded thing? Are you in the PEDS department? Oh, wait, I think they're gone already. Okay, that's why they're not answering. We do have a department review committee in pediatrics, and I'm going to start them in other departments as well. And they are a good place to look over your application before you get it to us. And thank you. I'm glad this has been helpful. Any other questions by anyone else? I mean, I can't stress enough, do the template exactly as it is. It'll also jog your memory on things like Eliza was saying that maybe you didn't put in your CV, but you should. I'm a firm believer in putting a reminder on your Outlook calendar every month to update your CV, because it's very hard to update it later. And like she said, it's very hard to remember all the teaching you've done. You know, for teaching, if you teach the same lecture 3 times a year to residents, just put, you know, you don't have to list all 3 dates. You can just put, you know, anatomy of the back lecture to 3rd year residents 4 times a year, I'm dating myself, 1999-present, if you've been doing it that long. So you don't have to remember every single date you did it, just that you do it like 3 times a year. But definitely don't put duplicates on your CV. Also, you can't list that you're program director of a fellowship. You can't list it at the top and then under administration and then put it somewhere else. You list everything once. And so like for that in particular, I think it's best under teaching activities. subsection teaching administration. But yes, you know, just be detailed on everything. And it is worth it. I know it's a lot to do, but in the end, it'll be so worth it. It'll just be like getting your degree. You were so glad when your medical degree was over, but it was worth it. And I really think faculty appointments they're not easy, but they are so worth it. Any other questions? Can I put the link to the faculty? Yes. Oh, can I? Yes. Okay, wait, faculty.
Is it the case one or the CCLCM?
CCLCM.
Okay.
There it is. And I don't know, does anybody have any interest in me showing on the website or no?
I've seen it. Thank you.
You've seen, did you love it?
I thought it was self-explanatory.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, my question, Janine, was to put the link to the website in the chat.
Oh gosh, I don't even know what it is.
Well, neither do I, so.
So all you would,
I can put it on there.
all
Thank
you
you.
can, what I tend to do, well, I have a link in my thing, but what I usually do is if I'm not at home, not on my work computer, I just go to Google and I type CCLCM. And am I sharing right now? Am I sharing, Eliza?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So, and then the first thing that pops up usually is Cleveland Clinic Learner College, but you can actually type in faculty affairs and then it'll pop up the faculty affairs office. So here we are. Let me make this bigger. Here's faculty affairs. There's Dr. Barnett's name. Here's our email and our phone number. Tina's the one who answers email and phone number the most. You can find out, like, these are all the committees that approve the applications. All the names of the volunteers are listed here. Like I said, we have CCLCM academic chairs of each of our 22 departments. And then we have faculty council reps that represent us over at CASE. And then if you go to current college faculty, you can see who's teaching. This is our wonderful executive dean, Dr. Isaacson. If you ever wonder if one of your coworkers has a faculty appointment, just click on the bottom and go to this public website. You don't have to be on the intranet. This is public. I'm going to type in Dr. Barnett, our associate dean, and here it pops him up that he's a professor of neurological surgery. So as long as the appointment has been approved, it'll show up on here. The one you're going to want to go to the most is this appointments and promotions. You're going to find a lot of information under apply for a new appointment or promotion. We do have this cool faculty role. So as soon as you have an appointment or get a temporary one, you can click on this link and find out what teaching opportunities are open in our college. The comparison tool, if you're not sure what rank you think you're qualified for, you can go here and look at this and see what's required for each rank and track. That's a cool thing, I think. And then it tells you down here the 4 steps to put in an application. Some people laugh at the last one, it's submit. But believe me, there are people who email us and said, I finished my application 6 months ago and I never hear from you, and it's because they never hit submit. So don't forget to hit submit. And then the last thing I'll show you is resources. So all the links and documents that are under each one of these tabs are all corralled under resources. So if you want to watch one of these videos from this workshop that we did previously, there's 5 of them here. So you can see what the other ones were like. Maybe something came up that, you know, answered a question you have that we didn't today. Our templates here are requirements checklist. When I tell you the requirements checklist is long, I wasn't kidding. It goes on for pages. But I will say it's all really, really, really good information. And all, you know, it probably would answer a ton of questions you might have if you looked at it. This whole long section right here is just on picking an external referee. All right. Any questions on that, or you want to see anything else? All right. Well, let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I guess we could say goodbye. We're here to help if you need anything. Just please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you
Thank you,
came.
Janine and Eliza.
Thank
Good
you.
work.
Oh, Megan. Okay. Thank you. All right. See ya.